All right, ladies and gentlemen, so welcome to today's class. Today we're going to talk about photosynthesis, and we're going to talk about, although we did talk about photosynthesis in a previous video, what we're going to do today is we are going to go over some of the details. I'm going to first kind of go over and review some of the details of the light dependent reactions, and then we're going to start talking a little bit about the light independent reactions. So real quick, let me just get my spotlight here. And it says we're going to talk about the light dependent reactions. We're going to talk a little bit about the steps involved, a little bit more in detail into some of the steps. So we know that basically photosynthesis is the process by which light energy is converted into chemical energy. And we have a very detailed process for it, right? So when we go into photosynthesis, we know we have a light dependent reaction and we have a light independent reaction. And in this video, we're going to highlight some of the details of the light dependent reaction and also highlight some of the details of the light independent reaction. So let's get to it. Now, these are just some of the most important concepts that I've gotten from your book. This is section 4.3 of your textbooks. And basically what I did is I mapped out some of the most important concepts. It says during the light dependent reaction, energy is captured and transferred in the thylakoid membranes by two groups of molecules called photosystem 1 and photosystem 2. So basically what the photosystems are a series of molecules that are in the thylakoids, which we know are in the chloroplasts, which basically capture that sunlight, and they're photosystem 2 and photosystem 1. Right, so that's pretty much what it's saying, and we're going to talk about that a bit more in detail when we go into the steps and how they work. Also, during the light dependent reactions, chlorophyll and other light absorbing molecules capture energy from the sunlight, which we've already established, and the oxygen is given off as a waste product. So part of the light dependent reaction is that oxygen is given up as a waste product. So the oxygen that we breathe is pretty much a byproduct or a waste product of the light dependent reactions in photosynthesis. And of course, we know that this is one of the reasons why photosynthesis is so important, although we are going to mention some of those a little bit later on. And another thing worth mentioning, it says that the main function of the light dependent reactions are to capture and transfer energy. So they are there to kind of capture and transfer energy. Energy carriers. So basically, what this means is that the light dependent reactions capture that energy from the sunlight. And we're going to talk about it in a minute, but pretty much they turn that into electron or electrical energy. And that electron or electrical energy is used in the later reactions that we're going to talk about. It says energy carriers are ATP and NADPH. The set or these molecules, go on to other phases of photosynthesis. And now we're going to summarize some of the steps. So the first step is that energy is captured from the sunlight, by absorbing molecules. Energy is transferred to electrons that enter an electron transport chain. So basically, they capture the energy and they put that energy, or they turn that energy into electrons, and those electrons go into the electron transport chain. Think of it kind of like a conveyor belt in a factory where everyone is in an assembly line and they're each doing their functions. The second step is that the water molecules are broken down to hydrogen, electrons, and oxygen molecules. The water provides hydrogen ions and electrons that are used in the light-dependent reaction. So basically, the water breaks down, oxygen is released into the atmosphere, and the hydrogen ions are kind of moved again across a concentration gradient to the thylakoids so that they can turn the NADPH or their NADP into NADPH and kind of make the process go all over again. So it's kind of like, okay, they broke down the water, they released the oxygen into the atmosphere, and then they went ahead and moved that hydrogen ion across a concentration gradient, which is why ATP is needed for this part. so that the process can be done all over again. And the third step is that energized electrons have two functions. They provide energy for hydrogen ion transport and are added to NADP and NADPH. So again, the hydrogen ions here are again are moved to provide the energy so that the light dependent reactions can occur, and then the other part is to add to the NADP molecule. The fourth step says that the flow of hydrogen ions through ATP synthetase, which is an enzyme, forms ATP. And then the last step of the light dependent reaction is that the products are oxygen, NADPH, ATP. And again, oxygen is given off as a waste product. Energy from the ATP and NADPH molecules are used to make sugars. So basically, when this molecule is formed, the NADP, along with the ATP, part of the energy is used to move the hydrogen ions again, and then the other molecules, the NADPH and the ATP, are used in the light independent reactions that we're going to talk about now. So basically, these two molecules are used in the light independent reactions. Okay, so let's talk about that real quick. I'm going to go ahead and clear all this, and then I'm going to talk about the light independent reactions. More specifically than none, the light independent reaction is also called the Calvin cycle. So sometimes you'll see it referred to as the Calvin cycle. So interesting about the light independent reaction is that the light independent reactions take place inside the chloroplast. Light independent reactions take place in the chloroplast. Okay. Just like in the light dependent reaction, they also take place in the chloroplast. Another thing worth mentioning is that the light independent reactions do not need sunlight. That's why they're called light independent reactions. Reactions do not need sunlight. Do not need sunlight. So let me see if I can fix this real quick here so it doesn't. There you go. So the light dependent reactions take place in the chloroplast, just like the light dependent. But one of the differences is, of course, that the light independent reaction does not require sunlight, and that these reactions can take place at any time. So the light dependent reactions obviously can only take place where there's light or sunlight. And these reactions, the light independent reactions, can take place at any time as long as the energy is present. So it's not that the light independent reactions don't take place or can't occur if there's any light. It's just that because light is not the main source, in order for them to undergo that reaction, even if it's a cloudy day, the plant is still making energy, right? That's pretty much what that sentence means. So now that we've talked about some of the differences of the light independent reaction, let's actually define the Calvin cycle. And the light independent reaction is actually called the Calvin cycle as well, or known as the Calvin cycle as well, and it's named after the scientist that actually that actually discovered this process. So let's define the Calvin cycle real quick. I'm sorry there for a second. Calvin cycle. The Calvin cycle uses carbon dioxide, CO2, the Calvin cycle uses carbon dioxide from the atmosphere the atmosphere. Um, and the energy carried by ATP and NADPH. By ATP and NADPH. Okay, so the Calvin cycle uses carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, and I realized that I really separated them. There's also supposed to be one sentence. All right, or one paragraph. It says that the Calvin cycle uses carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and the energy carried from ATP and NADPH. So basically, carbon dioxide helps fuel the light independent reaction. And one of the sources of carbon dioxide is not just from the atmosphere, but it's what we breathe out. When we inhale, we breathe in, we have oxygen, and we exhale carbon dioxide. So it's very important to understand that that carbon dioxide is extremely important in order to undergo the light independent reactions. And let's talk about some of the steps in the light independent reaction. So let's summary of the light independent reactions. And the first step is that carbon dioxide enters the Calvin cycle. So basically, CO2 enters the Calvin cycle. And remember, the Calvin cycle is basically the light independent reaction. And the carbon dioxide is obtained from the atmosphere. Second step is that ATP and ADPH and ADPH transfer energy to the Calvin cycle and keep the cycle going. Transfer energy to the Calvin cycle and keep the energy going. Or keep the cycle going. I'm sorry. Not the energy. Keep the cycle going. The third step is that one high energy 3-carbon molecule is made for every 3 molecules of carbon dioxide. So basically, the third step is that a 3 or one high energy 3-carbon, one high energy 3-carbon, one high energy 3-carbon molecule is made for every is made for every 3 molecules of carbon dioxide. So basically, it's saying that one carbon molecule, or that there's one high energy a 3-carbon. That means that there's going to be 3 carbons, and these 3 carbons are very important because they're going to help form the sugar. So it's saying that one high energy 3-carbon molecule is made for every 3 molecules of carbon dioxide. That enters the cycle. The fourth step is that two high energy, three carbon molecules. Now we have two high energy. And what I mean by high energy is that just that they have high energy. Two high energy three carbon molecule are bonded together to make a sugar. To make a sugar. So basically, glucose, for example, which is a sugar that can be used in this process, is pretty much made between steps 3 and 4. Okay, so two high energy three carbon molecule is are bonded together to make a sugar. To make a sugar. So six molecules of carbon of so six molecules of carbon dioxide must be added must be added to the Calvin cycle. Let's see if I can move this around. There we go. Must be added to the Calvin cycle. There you go. Now you guys can see it. Must be added to the Calvin cycle. And the fifth step, basically the products are a 6-carbon sugar. The products are glucose. And the sixth step, we have the products are glucose and ADP and ADP is that the NADP and ADP molecules return to and these molecules return to the light dependent phase. And by these molecules, I mean the NADP and the ADP. Great. So real quick, summarizing once again, and then we're going to talk a little bit about the importance of photosynthesis. But basically, carbon dioxide enters the Calvin cycle. ATP and NADP, NADPH, excuse me, transfer energy to the Calvin cycle so that the cycle can keep on going. Once these molecules transfer energy, one high energy carbon molecule is made. Once that high energy carbon molecule is made, it goes on to the next step where now we have two high carbon molecule being made. So basically, we have one high energy 3-carbon molecule made in the third step. Then in the fourth step, we have another high energy 3-carbon molecule made, and that makes the sugar, right? And I said I wrote 6, but this is actually the fifth step. So at the end of this step, of the fourth step, we have our fifth step, which is that we have the NADP and the ADP along with the glucose made. And now the NADP and the ADP go back to the light dependent phase. So that's the summary of those two of the photosynthesis process. I'm actually going to go ahead and talk real quick about some of the importance of photosynthesis, and then that will be it for this video lesson, guys. So what are some of the importances or the function of photosynthesis? So photosynthesis is important because organisms So let me actually read it from the book. Um, it's because plants produce food for organisms, whether they're carnivore or herbivores. Because if the carnivore eats a herbivore, for example, lions eat zebra, which are herbivore. Basically, part of the minerals that the lion is obtaining is from eating the meat of the zebra, because the zebra is a herbivore and it obtains its nutrients from plants. So it's important because they are plants are organisms for food, and they help regulate the Earth's environment. And more specifically, um, is that the carbon atoms that are used to make sugar are used to make sugar come from carbon dioxide gas in the air. Carbon dioxide gas in the air. So photosynthesis removes carbon dioxide from the so photosynthesis basically removes carbon dioxide gas from the air. And this actually helps regulate the Earth's climate. So there you have it, guys. The reactions, or the summary of the photosynthesis process, the light dependent and the light independent phase, along with the importance of photosynthesis. So hopefully this video will be useful to you guys. So stay safe, and we'll see each other soon. Bye.